Hey, it's Charlie Greenman. This is video 3 of this series that we're now calling Charlie Talks. One thing I want to do is I want to make these videos much more concise and to bring more value to them. So I'm going to start doing that from now on, and my apologies about the previous videos. So this one is about delegation. In particular, I want to make this in a very niche group. So I want this to be, if you're someone who's looking to start your own company in tech, how does delegation work for you? So first and foremost, I want to present a principle. I first saw this in Inc. magazine. It's called the 70% rule. And the 70% rule states that if someone else can do 70% as good as what you're doing, right? 70 is, I guess, a passing grade. So if someone can do a passing job on some task that you delegate to them, then you should delegate to that person and not do it yourself. The only question with regards to something like that, and there are many different levels to that delegation. There's telling someone what to do, there's having that person decide on their own, being able to branch out their own department, but we're talking at a base level. You're a startup founder trying to start your company, trying to get it off the ground. So in that, the issue though with, okay, you've decided to delegate to someone else is funds, because you need money in order to delegate. If you want to give money to an accountant, a lawyer, those are things obviously you can't do by yourself, and that usually founders tend to get hit a lot harder on those. Things like design work, potentially you can do yourself. Engineering are things that you can do yourself. Writing, those are things that you can do yourself. Marketing, branding, those are also things potentially that you can do on yourself. So those are the gray areas of where perhaps delegation might make sense. So, and that's where the 70% rule comes in. So then the question is, okay, so you need money, delegation. If you do need money for delegation and you don't have that money, then the next question is it make sense for you now to hop into a job? Because, and I know this conversation really is, should you work while you have a company, but I strongly believe that actually the conversation should be shifted more towards delegation, and delegation should be choosing whether or not you decide to work. Okay, so bottom line is, at what point in your life did you decide to start this company? And if you're in tech, odds are that you that you command some sort of relatively high rate as either an engineer or a consultant. So I've seen this many times with tech founders who have a background in product management or software, that in particular the ones who have a background in software, that they'll decide to build it on their own, and in addition they'll also do consulting on the side. And pretty much it's in different life cycles. In the beginning stage, you want to kind of bounce in and out. So you want to create for yourself money and savings to last you for a year, get yourself to a prototyping phase, or get yourself to a founding phase where you have the vision of the company laid out, you have your website, your brand, videos, marketing content, everything laid out, and now really all you need is to delegate those tasks and have people who execute. So at that point, it's very important that you yourself are the person who does that, because there isn't an ability really to give full delegation at that point, right? The 70% delegation is more on actionable items, not so much so on founding, let's call them founding items. So there are different people who I've heard different thoughts on this. There's most notably, there's Damon John from Fubu, and there's Sarah, I think her name Blakely, from Spanx. So they notoriously worked at their job while they're trying to get their company off the ground. And that's great, that works for them. I think in tech, it's a very different ballgame, because it requires a lot of brain power. And you're building something, depending on your product, odds are you're building something that hasn't been done before, and you need a lot of design input, and you need a lot of engineering input, and you need a lot of product development. And it's less of a, okay, let's get this out the door. You really need to it's really involved. And also, if you're a person with a software engineering background, your time might be literally worth, like $500,000 versus what you would have to spend on someone else. So you doing this work yourself versus delegation is very questionable. It's also important to know the type of personality that you have. There's There's a really, probably one of my favorite stories. There's this book called Pixel, Blood and Sweat or something, Sweat and Blood, Pixel, Sweat and Blood. And there they have a story of I think his Twitter handle is Concerned Ape. He created Stardew Valley. And his story is that he literally just holed himself in a room for about 5 years. He had, I'm not sure if it was his girlfriend or his wife, who was supportive. He lived with his parents. He had people that were constantly asking him, when are you going to be done? But he created a game that made $30 million. So, and he did it all on his own. He didn't delegate any of those tasks to anyone else. But that worked great for his personality. And when you take that into comparison to a consulting agency that might even employ 300 people as a consulting agency, if you're making only, let's say, $10,000 on average per person, your agency is only making $3 million, and unless you report all of that as an expense, you're talking taxes after that. So being able to delegate isn't in itself, it's a strength. It comes in tandem with the product and the business that you have. So at the end of the day, it's important to realize where you're coming from, what to work with your environment, and just think solely towards your task and think, how can I get from A to Z the quickest, but also how can I keep my integrity, how can I keep my mental mind intact? And if that means for you being able to live a semi-comfortable lifestyle, for instance, if you're someone who has a significant other, or there are other people that are dependent on you, that really changes that equation a lot. And also if you're someone who wants to be in that place, that also matters. And if you're someone who, let's say, having to live off of having to give up certain lifestyle choices, such as weekends, or being able to afford certain things, that might mess you up. And if you look at doing something over the course of 5 years, like Concerned Ape of Stardew Valley did, then it works. If you're comfortable with doing something in 5 years, then that is a very viable option. So it's important to be strategic about this. Really, it frustrates me a lot when I hear people say that this is the approach towards delegation, or how you should focus on your company, because really, especially when it comes to co-founders, these are people who really have a very unique lifestyle and life choices, and it's very important to understand what they're trying to get at and to be able to understand fully what you need. So I just wanted to say this video, get it off my mind. Remember the 70% delegation rule. Also keep in mind that depending on your personal background, it either makes sense for you to work or not to work. For me personally, I consult and I dip in and out every 6 months or so, and I found that to be the best. I'll get work done while consulting, but then leave that money over for me, and then eventually I'll get to a point where I'll probably be needing VC money. But really it depends on the type of product you're building and your background. I hope you enjoy this video, and feel free to leave some comments down below if you have something that you want to mention, because I'll continuously be making these videos, and it'd be nice if perhaps I do them in the best possible fashion. Thank you very much, and have a good weekend.